Today I'm going to give you a very brief commentary on a very important topic called storage economics that Hitachi has been pioneering since 2001, and how you could use this framework and then also the Hitachi strategy to really go about addressing what we call as the information glut in the economy today. And I'm not going to talk to you about the amount of information that's growing and the exponential growth. I think you all have visibility on the numbers. But I'd rather like to focus on the information glut and how it really impacts us today. And as you read the papers today, you must have read that there's stagnation, there's a freeze on capex, the economy is going through what I call as another phase of turmoil and uncertainty. And how do you now address the information glut? And here are some interesting statistics. The first thing is there are only 11% of companies in the worldwide economy today who are geared up today to manage the information glut. The rest of the companies today don't have the wherewithal or the IT resources or even a future vision to manage the information glut. Just to set the standard at a higher level, the growth of information and mismanagement of information leads to the low productivity of a nation and the global competitiveness of a nation. That's at a very high level. And taking it down, how it impacts organizations, today it's the information economy. And how you manage this information glut is going to dictate how organizations are going to survive and how they're going to be competitive in this global information economy. And that's why there's a big focus around how you go about managing this information glut. And that's why this concept of storage economics is becoming a lot more relevant on how you could use a framework to not only transform your data center into what Hitachi calls as the information center, but also go through a process where you have that fundamental math problem and that huge data growth happening at the same time. How do you go about capitalizing on that information so that you service your business far more effectively? So the principle of storage economics is actually based on the triangulation of three disciplines. The first one is storage architectures. Storage architectures and best practices. I'm not using the word products, I'm using the word storage architectures. The second is the triangulation with financial disciplines. And the third is with economic disciplines. And it's a very simple four-step process. And the first step is you really need to look at what are the challenges and the issues that are impacting your organization with respect to that information glut. Once you identify this, then you need to measure it, measure the impact of these challenges in your organizations. And then look at storage architectures and frameworks that can help you reduce these challenges or remove these challenges over a period of time, and then have a mechanism back to measure it once again. Storage economics is something which Hitachi has been learning, documenting, advocating, and delivering for customers since 2001. And it's gained a lot of importance, not only when the economy is up, but also in recessionary trends, where it's gained a lot more importance, and helping customers rediscover what they already have, go after the money that's already there in the data centers, and really reuse their assets far more effectively to drive better returns. So if you look at storage economics, it's based on four key tenets. The first tenet is price does not equal cost. I might be preaching to the choir out here, but this is something very, very fundamental. And if you look at most organizations globally and even in Asia Pacific and even in India, the fundamental mistake that we make is we start to pursue products, we start to pursue solutions with the fundamental fact that if we buy the cheapest product, we're addressing the storage cost issue. 65% of your storage costs are part of your IT budgets today. And buying a cheaper product is only going to compound those costs. You really need to look at architectures. And here's a classic example to disprove the fact that price does not equal cost. Assume you have two technologies which are priced at the same product. We all tend to go ahead and buy based on price per gigabyte. Now it's price per terabyte. Very soon it's going to be price per petabyte. And let's look at a new dimension today. The dimension is, what is the useful asset life? Think about the products and solutions that you brought in your organization. How much time did you take to ramp it up into production? How much time did you actually use the product in production? And how much time did you take to decommission that particular product or solution from your production environment? Today we are reaching situations where the cost of decommissioning an asset is higher than the acquisition cost, which is the price that you pay for a particular product or the solution. So very simply, if you just take an architecture which gives you faster time to ramp up and helps you extend the usage of the asset, your price per gigabyte has a totally different dimension. Then you take another important metrics, which is the utilization today, which is what I call the biggest toxic waste in the data center. If you take that dimension and really look at what is the actual utilization of the asset, then the price per gigabyte has a totally different dimension altogether. As you can see from this example, though you have two products priced at the same gigabyte, but once you take the useful asset life and once you take the actual utilization into consideration, there's an 80% difference. So that's the first basic tenet of storage economics. Price does not equal cost. There are a lot of other factors involved other than the acquisition cost. The second tenet with storage economics is that there is money in your data center that you can have access to. And over the period of 10 years, we have learned, documented, and proved to customers that there are roughly around 34 different types of money that exists in your data center, or 34 different types of costs in your data center. And these costs are quite obvious to some of us. Some of these costs are CapEx costs, some of these costs are OpEx costs. Each of these 34 different types of costs do not have the same weightage and same importance or time relevance. It would vary from one organization to another organization. Some of these costs could be hard costs, some of these costs could be soft costs. For example, the future impact of a situation, that is a soft cost, which you really can't put tangible budget value to. And if you look at these 34 different types of costs, this is money that you can go after. This is stuff like, hardware maintenance costs, software maintenance costs, but more important cost parameters like what's the cost of copies? What's the cost of migration? What's the cost of data loss? What's the cost of scheduled downtime? What's the cost of unscheduled downtime? What's the cost of provisioning? What's the cost of technology refresh? And when you take all these costs into consideration, and you will really be able to baseline that 65% of your cost that exists as part of the storage infrastructure. So that's the second tenet as far as storage economics is concerned. The third tenet with storage economics is that there are economically superior architectures available. I specifically don't use the word product or solution out here, because if you want to really address these costs, then you need a mechanism, and an architectural approach is the right approach as opposed to a product or a solution approach. And these economically superior architectures can be either applied in isolation or they can be applied as part of the data center transformation program. And if you look at all these storage architectures, there are 4 storage architectures that's having the biggest impact, roughly around 40 to 45% impact on the total cost of storage today. And those 4 architectures are, number 1, storage virtualization. That's the big architecture that's having huge relevance. The second one is dynamic tiered storage. The third one is a concept called dynamic provisioning. And the fourth one is a concept and an architecture called active archive. These 4 architectures are having a profound impact on the economics of storage today. And when you combine all of this together, the impact is significant. And I'll show you with some of the examples how these four architectures can really help the organization weather the economic storm. So you need to really map the costs that exist with the right architectures, either in isolation or in tandem, and then measure it and see how you can mitigate that over a period of time. The fourth tenet is a concept called econometrics. Econometrics means very simple. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it, you can't improve it. So you need to have a mechanism to go after the money that's there in your data center. Here's the classic case of a company called Adobe, which used storage economics to actually baseline all the storage costs that exist in the organization. And over a period of 5 years, this organization achieved a 45% reduction in unit cost of storage, in spite of the capacities going up from 220 terabytes to close to around about 1.9 petabytes. This is a planned investment of storage architectures that brought them to this stage. So you really need to have a dashboard that tells you where the money is and how you plan to pursue that money and how much of money are you reclaiming back from your data center, or how much of money which is lying as toxic waste is removed from your data center. So this is the fourth concept of storage economics called as econometrics. So from a strategy standpoint, how do you go about putting storage economics in place? The first step is go ahead and put together this baseline of your storage costs. As I mentioned, there are 34 different types of costs. Most organizations don't go after all 34 costs. What we've seen most CIOs do is pick around about 5 or 10 of these storage costs that have the biggest impact for their organization. So that becomes your baseline. And you can actually visit Hitachi Data Systems website and go to a link called Economize Your Storage. And you will have all these costs available. You also have calculators available that will tell you, is there a potential for you to go after these storage architectures? It's a self-running tool which will actually give you visibility. You can also visit our blogs where we have our chief economist, David Merrill, and read some of his stuff around how people are using storage economics. So the first thing is baseline. Once you baseline, you go ahead and prioritize and isolate the costs that are having the biggest impact for you. Once you prioritize them, then you can go ahead and map the architectures that is going to actually either reduce those costs over a period of time or completely remove those costs over a period of time. And then you can put together the procurement plan. This simple approach has really transformed data centers today. It's really helped organizations go after money in their data centers.